Despite being in garbage time on the 2025 season, the Chiefs have to get answers to 3 critical questions today.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. This is Locked On Chiefs, your daily show for your Locked On podcast network on the Kansas City Chiefs. Every angle, everything we can do every single day for you. You everydayers are already here and know that. We appreciate you very much. We're now, because of you everydayers, the #1 sports podcast network out there. And that we cannot thank you for enough. This is going to be a fun one. We are taking a little bit of time here as we get ready for the season finale and then on to the rebuild. But we're going to go through a couple of things today that stand out from the Christmas Day game that need to be addressed and what has to happen going forward. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where I already have grades in on several edge rushers, and we are starting the process. You can get all of our draft coverage at NFL 33 and Rogue Analytics. NFL 33 is where we put out our actual media. Me and my team over there are covering the off season for you. Don't miss that. Go get subscribed. And over on RGR Football, we break down the film. We look at all the inside pieces that you need to know back and forth about your Kansas City Chiefs. I've been doing this show for 9 years with my partner, Chris Clark from KC Chiefs Corner, who will be back with us later in the week, but wanted to take this opportunity to go through a few things with you. Garbage time this is. We all know what that comes down to is that the effects, the outcomes of these games don't have any effect on the Chiefs other than keeping them in contention for a higher draft pick and more lucrative take in the NFL draft. We're going to cover some of those things because of garbage time, what has to happen, who should be on the field coming up. I'm going to focus on the defense today, and we're going to get to the offense coming as well. But what has to change in the attitudes all over this team right now to make the most of what is right in front of them at this point. And then we're going to press home the point of the specifics that have to happen. I appreciate you taking the time and welcome. Flying solo today as Chris and I are balancing out some things that we are going to take on through this season. And in wake of the Christmas Day game, thank you for being with us. If you saw us live, go back and check that out if you didn't. And coming up this week, we're going to have more on the offensive side and the changes need to happen, as well as Matt Derrick joining us yet again. And we're going to look towards the season finale. So we'll get you ready this whole way as we approach the offseason as well. But the big thing is that they have to make some significant changes. They made partial progress towards that goal in putting guys on IR last week. That's perfectly fine. It was able to alleviate some of the congestion at a couple of position groups, and I think did give us some valuable information that we needed to have. Some of that has to continue, and we're going to talk about that here in a bit. But there are 2 things that stand out to me right now, right off the top, that who has to be on the field. And again, trying to focus on the defensive side for the most part today. We'll have a couple of notes on the offense. But it comes down to these 2 things. Noel Williams put up a performance that demands more time. You need more evidence. You have to see what else he can do against a foe that maybe isn't particularly pushing your buttons, but gives you an opportunity to put on display a little bit more variety of what you can do. I think they need to move Noel around and get more of what you saw against him. I believe it was 72 snaps last week on Christmas Day, 43 in coverage. That is a healthy amount and gives you some takeaways. And on top of his 6 tackles, he was in there in the mix. He did miss a tackle. We know that does happen to him sometimes, but 21 yards on 4 for 4. And I think that demands more attention, more visibility, more film to see what you can do next year, because that forms your offseason plan, not just for free agency, but for the draft as well. And there are prospects that we're going to be going over all offseason. They're going to highlight, in particular, the cornerback group. There's plenty of those guys that are going to be out there that might offer an opportunity for the Chiefs to do something like they did several years ago when the Fab Five came in, and maybe double down on that concept. Maybe the same concept is applied to the edge rushers, which we'll talk about here coming up. But Noel Williams is a guy that must be on the field now. He needs to not come off. The second one that I think needs to be on the field more and did play significant snap total, it was not nothing. It was 19 snaps. And I'm not too worried about PFF grades. If you are, then you guys can go check those out on your own. I'm not gonna hover on the grades, because what I saw out of Zach Pickens demands more playing time. I thought, especially against the run, he held up stout. He played strong at the point of attack, and I was pretty happy with his performance, especially when you take into account that he was out there the majority of the time with Mike Pennell and Jerry Tillery. In those snaps, the vast majority of the time, the Broncos chose, either because he was strictly lined up majority of the time in the one tech, or because he was the threat, they chose to double team Zach Pickens, not Jerry Tillery. Nobody was worried about Jerry Tillery. So I think that tells you a side comment on Jerry's force factor here and what other teams have to see out of his game to be concerned about it, which they're not. I think it also tells you that they're going to choose to pick the guy that's a little bit more robust, the younger guy, the guy that might be able to wreck a few things. And I thought he held up really well at the point in terms of taking on those doubles, getting his anchor down, and doing what he needed to do to be the one tech that kind of solidified the front when you didn't have Mike Pennell in there, when you didn't have your normal players. Mike Dana was mixing in there a bit as well, but I thought on rewatch, I was really happy, especially against the run and against the screen. He showed good pursuit against screen passes as well. Not perfect, but getting off of blocks, getting down the line of scrimmage, flowing laterally, which is exactly what he has to do. I thought Zach Pickens showed enough to deserve and demand more playtime in coming weeks, particularly this week here, so you can get him on there. I would start him. I wouldn't be bashful about it. I would put him out there and let him play the entire game, because with Omar Norman-Lott coming back next year from an injury and having Pickens on the roster at this point, you need to know as much as you can about what he's able to do. What I didn't see from Zach Pickens was enough opportunities to actually rush the passer. And I think that's important, because coming out of college, I thought he had some upside there. He hasn't been able to realize it. So the two phases, holding up against even zone runs, certainly against double teams and in the screen game, I thought he passed very well in this first action. Now they got to actually give him opportunities to rush the passer, to see what he can bring alongside when Chris Jones is in there with Omar Norman-Lott before Omar comes back. You have to find that out. And I do think there's more acquisitions at the defensive tackle position in our future, but you want to know what you got with him. And I think that it's unfortunate that it took this long. I would have liked to have seen him sprinkled in much earlier, but now there's no reason not to play him consistently the whole game. Start him. Let's see it all. That's what has to happen. That is answer number 2, along with Noel Williams continuing. That's answer number 1. But there are other changes that need to happen, and I want to get into all of those coming up next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge sometimes. But with PrizePicks, it always feels the right way to go about it. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend, playoff games, elite hoops action almost every night, and the action never slows down. With PrizePicks, you can stay in control. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less and play your way. It's yours to do with. Getting started on PrizePicks is quick and simple. The app is super easy to navigate. It's made for watching games and makes them more engaging, especially when you're following player performance. So just download the PrizePicks app right now today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. At PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Make sure that you're subbed over at NFL 33 and RGR Football. That's where a lot of my other content is going to come out through the off season. And you guys know all of the metrics that we're going to put out for you as we get ready for the draft and for the Chiefs' next build cycle. And I think that's going to be important because you have to see some changes systemically, but also in attitude. And I think that's right here where we have to change and shift a little bit. It is less about trying to force bad plays and trying to get a W. Yes, you want to be the Raiders. There's no question about that. But it's about putting players in situations that you can continue to evaluate them. That's the attitude that has to change for the coaching staff. They've been too reliant on their ways. They've been too stuck in their ways. They have to get variation to get good evaluation on players that they need more information on, including some on the offense, but particularly on the defensive side of the ball. You have to change your attitude about what's going on in your linebacker core. The fact that Cooper McDonald outplayed Jeffrey Bossa is a problem for this coaching staff. That means you are ignoring what the front office evaluated in the offseason. Now, players make leaps. There's no way to deny that. And so you do have to be respectful of when a player does step up. McDonald certainly has the size and the length that you're looking for. Maybe you have to consider how you use Jeffrey Bossa. But the fact that you haven't to this point is an issue. And that's on you, Steve. That's on you, Brendan Daly. You have got to find a way to use him. Now, I personally do not feel like it has to be as a linebacker. I know he has that ability, and I know that he moves well. The speed is an issue. You need more speed on defense, and I think he should be played and deployed as a will. I don't see any reason for Drew Tranquil to play this week. There's absolutely nothing to it. He is a vested veteran. Everyone knows what he brings to the table. Every team around the league that could be looking at him in free agency, as I do not expect that Drew Tranquil returns to the Chiefs. That's all said and done. The book's written. They can just go read it. You have to find out about Bossa. You want to play McDonald? Fine. He could be an absolute diamond in the rough that you want to continue to evaluate as well. But that means you have to play them both together. And that means you have to sacrifice your ability to be as stout this week as possible. That attitude has to change. You have to go explore what you have in Bossa and McDonald together, because there is a lingering, a small possibility that they could have to play together, not just next season, but beyond that as well. And I'll say this. If you find that you have a future Sam in Cooper McDonald, great. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need Jeffrey Bossa. Now, I think he is a true will. He should be rangy and running all over the place. If you're still too concerned about his ability to take on the run, yes, he does need to improve that. He needs a year in a professional strength conditioning program. He needs to put on some mass, but he needs to maintain his speed. That is his advantage. That's what he brings to the table that you cannot change your attitude on. You have to use him for what he's worth. And that means if you are concerned about what's going on in the secondary, obviously you're going to get CRW back next year. And I do think he has the ability to be a true free safety over the top. If you're playing split coverage, I think he should be one of those two guys. What you do with Chamari Connor and Jaden Hicks is the next question. But for this week, if you need to find out more, that means playing Hicks, maybe sitting Connor, which I think is a good thing all the way around at this point in the season. And maybe you change your attitude about Jeff Bossa and you put him in there at a safety slot, at a nickel linebacker role, and see what you get there. If he becomes, as his draft selection, a nickel linebacker only type player, we can live with that because he's got what you need. He's got as much speed as Willie Gay did in terms of being able to get sideline to sideline. That's what the Chiefs are missing all over the place. The more you watch the film, the more you see that they are lacking the explosiveness that they need. And it's two things. It's recognition, which only comes with reps and film study, and physical ability. This is where the athletic matrix comes in every single year. That's why you always see me emphasize athletic matrix scores, because they're not just raw. They're not just RAS. RAS is just a statistical comparison of raw scores. It means nothing other than an A to A comparison. When you put it all onto the field, you have to have that matrix of abilities in order to play the game. And that's what's important. We have to see that. The Chiefs have gotten away from a little bit in recent years the true athletes that they need. And that happens all over the place, but nowhere is it more evident than the secondary, because you've taken some borderline athletes, guys that are not in the top 10%, top 20%, and yet we're able to make some great finds. Jalen Watson came out of nowhere as a low-round pick, much like L'Jarius Sneed had. Now you have Hicks in a very similar role, similar draft space, but you've got to continue to get the payoff. And that means if there's going to be mistakes, there's mistakes. There's no better time to risk a loss than right now. So get Hicks out there. Let him play his role. Get Bossa out there next to him possibly. If you're going to run three safeties, put Bossa out there as one of them. I don't care. Get more information for what you can use. I feel like the attitude has to change by the coaching staff, and maybe it's not Dave Merritt. I feel that Dave Merritt is a bit more flexible, open to suggestion, open to evaluation, and I do feel this comes more from Steve Spagnuolo, Brendan Daly, Joe Cullen about being stubborn about what their players are rather than using what they were chosen from, particularly on the pass rush side. And I don't see any reason why you don't continue to start Ashton Gelati. He should get as many reps as possible. Every rep you get him now is worth 3 practices come training camp, and you're going to need him in training camp. You're going to pick another edge rusher because you have to have more, because you have to be able to supplement George Karlaftis and his lack of explosion. You have to make guys that can force the subject, and that's where they have to press. We're going to talk more about pressing right after this. Let's be real. No one starts a business with the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. Oof. That's where you get Gusto. It takes the stress out of payroll, benefits, HR, so you can focus on your business and supporting your team, getting your work done so that you can put out content. I mean, whatever it is that your product is. Gusto is an all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all in one single place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprises and no charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools make it easy to do letters, onboarding materials, packets, direct deposits as well. Save you time and hours every week, all the time. It is worth all of the effort. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL, and you get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months free at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. Now, pressing the point is exactly what we're looking for. Pressing the offense, pressing your abilities, pressing the outside of the envelope to see what you can produce. And on the defensive side, that comes down to the pass rushers. We talked about Pickens earlier, and there wasn't a whole lot of pass rush inside. Gelati has been coming along on and off for what you're looking for as a secondary edge rusher. But quite frankly, he's never been the explosive first step, flush the quarterback type player. You need speed rush. You need to find out how you can either work as a group to collapse the pocket, or you have to have someone that is the bird dog that flushes the quarterback out of his comfort zone and gets him outside. Now, I don't believe that they have one of those players on this particular group. Maybe you feel like you can rush with some linebacker help, like with Leo Chenal and even Cooper McDonald. That pair might be very interesting in the pass rush set. That's another thing that I think you have to look at combining. There's a ton of secondary blitzes that Steve Spagnuolo runs. He doesn't run enough linebacker sets. If you're going to send a fifth rusher, I think one with a little bit more weight from closer in the A gaps in particular, but B gaps as well, so they don't have to run around as much like the DBs do. I think that's worth finding somebody. I think McDonald showed a flash or two. I don't see that he actually recorded a pressure, but I felt like he was pushing, and I feel like he might have more pass rush ability than maybe even Leo does from an ability on the outside to get in that B gap and really push that quarterback out of his safety zone. And that's what I'm looking for in the future. Depending on whether it's injury or age, Nick Bolton's going to have to be replaced soon. I do believe that Leo Chenal is a need in returning him as a free agent this offseason so that you can continue to build a group that may eventually look like Leo in the middle, Cooper at strong, and Bossa as the will. That could be your future linebacker core. And as the league continues to swing the pendulum back towards running the ball more, attacking on the ground, jumbo formations, using extra linemen in strange ways, double and triple tight end sets, you have to be able to play in your base with not just power like Steve Spagnuolo wants to, but with speed. You have to have speed in your base package at the linebacker level. You have to have big bodies that can cover you up. We're going to talk about the draft class, especially the edges that can go in and play some 5 technique like Caldrick Falk. Falk in particular, I think, is a lot of people's favorites because he matches Steve Spagnuolo's profile. I'm not looking for that. I want speed rush, and I want it now. The league is faster getting the ball out than ever before, but speed is what kills right now. If you don't have it, you are getting killed, and that's what the Chiefs defense looks like right now. So McDonald has some speed for his size. Bossa has a ton of speed for his, and Leo is actually on the upside of his athletic ability as well. So that could be a trio for the future that you may have to get into. And as I'm actually in Kansas City this week and have been talking to a lot of people that I see out the store, and thanks for everybody for saying hello. It's nice to run into folks that listen. I appreciate all your comments and all your concerns. I know that the team itself is not as worried about some of these things as the fan base is, even as I am. What used to be a team that was founded in exceptionalism, either at the athletic ability level or at the production level, seems to have become more of a singular trait-based evaluation that has to then be built around. And if it's excellent and it's that good, then that's great. If you can get a guy that is just a ears back pass rusher that gets to the quarterback and you can build his game around him, okay, I can live with that. That's not what the last 5 years looks like. And quite frankly, the discommunication between the front office selections and the coaching staff's development path has to be alleviated. And this is pressing the point yet again in that this is still a problem. And it's going to be a problem until they prove that it isn't. So while it may be a bit repetitive, I'm going to continue to make sure that we are all talking about the elephant in the room is that the two halves of this organization have not been working together the last couple of seasons. And it's starting to show up more and more. That has to get corrected right now. And so for this last regular season game, what we have to see is that there's a concerted effort in a direction, that hopefully there have been talks between the front office and the coaching staff about how can we correct this going forward? What does it need to look like next year? How do we get around what we've been doing to ourselves in years of late and get it corrected? Because there's talent out there. There's talent on this roster that is not being maximized currently. And I do think that this last ball game, whether it's playing Christian Fulton, who at this point in reviewing the contract feels like he's going to be in Kansas City next year, and you don't really have a viable out that makes sense because of the contract numbers. So if he's part of that, you have to put him in more situations. He commented the other day that he finally felt like this was his first game of the season where he was actually full go. That's ridiculous. And that is a failure on this organization's part to have it last this long. But if you're stuck with him and that contract is done, then you have to maximize him next season. So do everything you can to get him a few more reps in different situations here. Can he take away somebody's top target? Can he work into rotations? Can he go into the nickel so that you can flip Trent McDuffie, Noel Williams, and Christian Fulton if they are the top three going into next season? Do you have the versatility to make him an all-around player? That's another question that continues to need to be pressed. You're going to lose players like Charles Omenihu. You're going to lose players that I think probably you need to. Mike Pennell, I'm glad he came back. He was an easy plug-in, but production hasn't been there. You need more from that. Brian Cook, you're likely to lose. We talked about the safeties a little bit earlier. The other guy that I do want to point out here in coverage was Kevin Knowles. Only got, looks like, 5 coverage snaps. That has to change. Has got to improve there because you need to know what you have there. He's a guy that I identified in training camp, and he had kind of a bumpy path, but I did feel that he could get to the point where he could be either a spot starter or a fourth corner that comes in and gives you solid reps. They have to solidify that. He needs time with Dave Merritt. He needs time on the field to see more. He does make a couple of mistakes per game that if experience removes those mistakes, he's a viable player for this roster in 2026. And that's what they have to figure out and confirm, because I do believe that shapes the future of what the secondary looks like. You already know you have to fix some of the safety aspects. You already know that Trent McDuffie has a contract deal coming, how they choose to deal with that. You already know that Jalen Watson is a free agent. These all have to be addressed. And knowing what you have, in particular in Noel Williams and Kevin Knowles, is important. I'm not trying to say that Knowles is going to become the starting nickel or anything like that. In all intents and purposes, I think that probably will be Trent McDuffie going forward, because I don't think they have the ability to cover the nickel any other way that's consistent right now. If Knowles changes that, then you get to maximize McDuffie yet again. And this is a bit of a back and forth like it was with the Jerry Sneed about how do you maximize him? How does he make your defense best based on alignment? And I do think Trent McDuffie is still that good. Couple of games that get to him, in particular, some Courtland Suttons and some bigger receivers. There are ways around that. There are matchups around that. And you can still be elite, even if you have to make some adjustments based on those matchups. Now, I'm going to have more for you. We're going to talk about the offense. Chris will be back. Matt Derrick will be back. We'll get ready for this last game coming up, and they will jettison immediately into the offseason. I'm already doing mock drafts over on RGR Football, so join me there, as well as NFL 33, where I'm putting out a lot of information. My staff and I dig deep into all the metrics, all the measurables, everything that you need to know for this draft. It is a great deal going on there right now. You can get 40% off of the normal rate on NFL 33, so please check that out as well. And we'll always have a feedback loop here to Locked On Chiefs, where it all begins for you guys. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for dealing with the end of this season that I know has been frustrating. There's really no way around that, but we're doing it together, and we're going to get there together as the Chiefs look at jumpstarting the second portion, the second phase of their dynasty. Don't miss a beat. Have a great one. I'll talk to you next time.